everybody. Today we're going to do a little bit of a leaf through the supplement Rivendell for the One Ring role-playing game. It was written by Francesco Nepitello, and of course it is, as you can imagine, a really good book, because I have to say I have read, I think, 5 books from this series yet, and I haven't read a single one that I thought was not up to par. They are really well written. Now, the Rivendell source book does not contain any adventures, unlike, for example, the Bree one, which is a source book that contains also 3 adventures set in and around Bree. Rivendell is, in inverted commas, only a source book. Now, I would like to point out that naming it Rivendell is probably misleading, because while Rivendell is detailed in the book, it is also detailing Eriador. Eriador is the completely empty land between the Shire and the Misty Mountains and around Bree. It is the former kingdom of Arnor, Rhudaur, and Cardolan, Cardolan, and of course Angmar. And it's now depopulated after several centuries of war and strife, and of course there was also a plague, so it's largely devoid of people. So what does this book give you? Well, first of all, it gives you a beautiful map, and this would be the player map, and the Lawmaster's map is in the back, of Eastern Eriador. So you've got Angmar here in the north, the Lone Lands over here. We've got Bree, the Old Forest. The Shire would be over here, and you can't really see that, so it would be down here. Here we've got the Grey Waste, Mount Gram, Mountains of Angmar, Khan Doom. These are the Lone Lands, Eregion, here's Moria, Caradhras, and Rivendell is over here. And I'm afraid that there's some glare, but this is Rivendell, you have to trust me. Here is the East Road, which our heroes in the Fellowship of the Ring don't travel, but they basically cut north here, near Bree, go through the Midgewater marshes. Here is Weathertop, and then they basically go around it, and then this is the last bridge, and then they ford the Bruinen and then make it to Rivendell. So all of these areas are, except for Dunland, anything south of Tharbad or Tharbad's ruins, are just mentioned, they're not described. So what do you get? First, you get an introduction that tells you how to use it, how to use this book. It tells you about the passing of years. It tells you that the material presented in Rivendell assumes that the year is sometime after 2951 of the Third Age. But as far as into the Tale of Years as the year 2977, the ideal date for the conclusion of the Darkening of Mirkwood campaign, which is detailed in a different book. First, it tells you about Imladris, which of course is the Elvish word for Rivendell. It explains to you where it is. It details what the last homely house looks like. It also, explains to you what you have to do in order to find Rivendell, because as I've pointed out, Rivendell isn't common knowledge. Normal people like you and I would not know about it. And even not all rangers would know where it is. They might have heard of it, but they certainly don't necessarily know where it is. So this is a map of Rivendell, and here you see the different houses that there are. You've got Elrond's house, you've got residences, workshops, meeting chambers, armory, infirmary, baths, servants' quarters and stables. Erestor's house. Erestor is the guy who makes the Mirrorvor. River house, smithy, cloister, house of Glorfindel, Garner, training ground, and guest stables. So they've actually given it quite a lot of detail. And by the way, Pencil Pauly, none of them live in trees. They live in houses. Then it describes what the house looks like, the entrance hall, the Hall of Fire, which we all know because that's where Frodo meets Bilbo for the first time after they've parted ways. The House of Elrond, ground floor, first floor, second floor, third floor, so you can really take your party through this. This is the compound, these are the cellars and the crypts and caverns. It tells you who you can meet. Of course, you can meet Elrond and what that means. You can meet Arwen and what that means. So basically, when you see her, you get hope because she's, at this stage, she's several thousand years old. You can meet Glorfindel, you can meet Erestor, you can meet Lindir. They tell you a little bit about Erestor's medicinal tonics. They've got Damron, the elven smith, that you can talk to about smithing. The White Council is mentioned. The other elf lords of Rivendell are mentioned. There are also things that you can do while in Rivendell. So how does it affect shadow? How does it affect endurance recovery, effects on experience? They also provide you with new fellowship undertakings that you can do when you're in Rivendell. Not necessarily in Rivendell only, so go and see a Lawmaster can be done anywhere. But it has to be a place where a Lawmaster dwells, because in this book they now start giving out information on how to create magical treasure. So they explain how the Lawmaster can do this, but then of course you find a magical artifact, or you find an artifact but you don't know what it is until you talk to a Lawmaster about it. So of course this is something you would do in a fellowship phase. Other things like receive title friend of Elrond, open Rivendell as a sanctuary, researching lore in the House of Elrond, there and back again, year's end only, write a song, visit the treasury of your folk. So the writer songs can be done anywhere. And then you have different types of songs that you can write. Of course, you all know that music is extremely important in the world of Tolkien. The world actually came into being as a result of the music of the Ainur. So it is very important. And of course, songs play an important role to Tolkien himself, but also to what they do to people in the story. Then, and that is 24 pages into the book, we start with the history of Eriador, and Eriador and its history cover most of the book, because it's 66 pages of, it's 41 pages of description of Eriador, plus then you have its monsters, which are also in here. So this could also have been called Eriador, but of course then most people would have gone, what's Eriador? And Rivendell is of course a lot more known, but you know, all of this is essentially Eriador. That's 54 pages. 64 pages. It explains to you what the realm of Arnor was, the different parts, Arthedain, Cardolan and Rhudaur, what the rise and fall of Angmar, and the different battles that were fought, who was fighting them, what happened to the different people, what happened to the Lord of the Nazgul, who was of course the Witch King of Angmar. It explains the Orc Wars, it explains the Long Winter, the recent years, and then it gives you all of the detailed information on all of the different regions. So here we've got Eregion, where it is, what you can find. So for example, here we've got the Whispering Halls. What is the wildlife like? Is there any? Because some of this is really devoid of everything, because you only have trolls, which of course are wildlife, but not very nice wildlife, but also then notable locations like the Redhorn Pass, the Troll Shores, of course we know about them from The Hobbit. Again, a beautiful, tiny, but very tiny map. It explains to you who lives there. But Burke, the gatekeeper, is of course a troll, and then you've got a female troll called the Queen of Castle Hill. Her name is Rina, and she's a terrible, terrible one. I've no idea how my two girls will fare in any land that is inhabited by trolls, because I looked at their stats. They're terrible, they're horrific. Then things you can do there. sometimes you might also meet somebody, because this is devoid of people mainly, who is a good guy. So there are a couple of wandering... there's one wandering elf somewhere, and then there are some Dunedain that basically watch the place. And you can basically send your troops, send your group, I should say, not your troops, on their merry way and explore all of Eriador. So again, this is about moving, about traveling, about facing the land that, in this case, I mean, here we're talking about Angmar. This is cursed land. I mean, the land itself is poisonous. You also see Angmar is still not completely destroyed. There are still watchtowers left. They are described. Here I actually like the artwork. You also get fellowship undertakings like, for example, find Athelas or watch upon Amon Sul, different hazards that you could play. And also you get interesting Fornost, of course, is in there. Fornost, as you will know, is the last of the cities of the kings. Norbury of the kings, are also known as Deadman's Dyke. It's where basically Arthur Dewey fought his last stand, and then of course he drowned in Lindon, off the coast of Lindon. They also have very interesting enemies for you. The White King. You also get stats for Nazgul, with quite interesting stats, and also with this book they introduce two very powerful races or classes, the Rangers of Arnor and the High Elves of Rivendell, and in order to ensure that the monsters are in line with these more powerful creatures that your heroes can, your players can play. They've given you the possibility of creating powerful adversaries by giving them enhancements, up to 1 or 2 maximum powerful special abilities, which you can add to normal, in inverted commas, monsters. Black Breath. One of them is actually the Black Shadow, which I think is actually quite gruesome. A victim of the Black Shadow remains unconscious for a number of days, equal to the attribute level of the highest rated ring wraith the characters faced when he was exposed to the Black Breath. So basically, when you're exposed to Black Breath, you must immediately make a corruption test with TN10 plus the highest attribute level among the Nazgul, plus 1 for every ring wraith present. A companion who fails the roll gains 1 shadow point and falls unconscious. A successful healing roll revives the character. Upon awakening, the character is confused and is temporarily miserable until able to rest for a prolonged time in a safe place. If the corruption test fails with an Eye of Sauron, then the companion has been stricken by the Black Shadow, and the Black Shadow actually kills you. So it is actually quite laconic in the way they describe it. A victim of the Black Shadow remains unconscious for a number of days, equal to the attribute level of the highest rated ring wraith the character faced when he was exposed to the Black Breath. So far, so good. For each of these days, the sick character must pass a corruption test. Again, TN16 no less. Or gain 1 point of shadow, reduce the TN to 14 if the hero is assisted with a successful healing roll. Still, should a stricken hero's shadow rating overcome his hope score during the malady, then the character slips into even deeper dreams and then dies. That's, and then he dies. There is nothing you can do. I mean, this is Lord of the Rings for you. He just died. If the hero resists for the length of the malady, he finally overcomes his sickness and wakes up, but maintains the new shadow score. Here we've got Ettins, who are basically walking stone creatures and terribly dangerous. There is nothing in here that I would like to encounter. I have to say, as far as monsters go in the One Ring RPG, they are all terrifying. I looked at them, not only the stats, but the pictures and the descriptions. They are horrifying. I mean, give me a beholder any day, but keep away those Nazgul from me, because this, even like the orcs, I mean, Radgul is an orc chief. He's got attribute level 6. For his spear, he rolls 2 dice plus adds his attribute level. So, you know, he's going to be somebody to seriously reckon with. Then you have wraiths and ghosts and special abilities of the undead. Really, you know, serious stuff going on here. You've got bog soldiers, so people who died in the War of Angmar and then basically were left in the bog. So think Gladden Fields. Fell wraiths. Spectres. The White King, not to be confused with the Witch King, who is here. This is the Wraith Lord, the Witch King. I mean, this face, I mean, of course we know that they don't have a face that we can see, but this looks so much like a Greek tragedy face mask. It's terrifying to behold. I mean, I really like the artwork in this book. The other artwork in other books didn't really do so much for me, but the artwork in this is really great. Then it tells you, gives you the stats for the Lord of the Nazgul. He's got an attribute level of 8, and he's got a long sword where he rolls 4 dice plus adds his 8, or Morgul knife where he rolls 3 dice plus adds his 8. You know, basically you meet him, you're screwed. Magical treasure. So it basically says that there are things like hoards where you can find magical treasure, and it actually, when you play different scenarios, it will tell you, well, it's likely that there is something here by adding asterisks, and it tells you the rules of how to put them together. And then it provides you with this. And these documents are famous weapons and armor and magical treasure index. They suggest that the lore master for each of his campaigns and all of her campaign members creates a number of magical treasures that would suit that particular character's life. Not just any old treasure, but it has to meet certain criteria to be fit for purpose for each character. And they suggest that you make 3 of these. Also bearing in mind, of course, that this isn't a superhero game where everybody ends up with blades of Gondolin, you know. They have to be very magical, they have to be very, very special, they have to be very rare. And they basically tell you to prepare those. And then, you know, for example, if you've had a campaign or something really important happen, then you should consider the possibility of making it possible for your players to obtain such an object. But again, it's also to do with die rolling, you know, and it could also be a precious object that is a pearl. It also tells you about cursed artifacts and how magic could work through them. So magical results if you have this. Not so subtle magic, like a companion might run effortlessly along a rope suspended over a stream, athletics, or cow a proud elf lord or wild Beoning chieftain with a look, or, you know, things like that. Famous weapons and armor, of course, use it with care. Bane weapons have been wrought to defeat a specific enemy. If the magical item is of elven or Numenorean craftsmanship, then it must be attributed with 1 or more banes, as several of the special virtues that may be attributed to it are effective only against bane creatures. So 2 races from the following: orcs, trolls, wolves, evil men, undead. Orcs, wolves, or spiders. So this is basically how to make your own treasure book, which I really like. Enchanted qualities: ancient close fitting, biting dart, cleaving. Cursed items, how do curses work? It basically tells you should be able to lift them. You shouldn't ever give anybody a cursed item that they cannot uncurse or decurse. And also how to do it and what the curse could be. And then they give you a magical treasure index for a couple of made-up groups. So the Darkening of Mirkwood, they put this together. They put it together, interestingly enough, so famous weapons as well. For each, and then they do the same thing for the campaign, the quest for Eriador, which would have been our 13 Dwarves and Bilbo. So they put it together and then they do it for the campaign Ruins of the North, which is quite helpful because obviously the Ruins of the North might be something you're playing. Then they have added the Eye of Mordor. And how this works is that they kind of, and this is a little bit like in the War of the Ring board game, where they kind of think that as you journey and as you become, I don't know, more infamous in the eyes of the enemy, the eye becomes aware of you. And the eye awareness is a numerical value that is kept track of from session to session. It measures the hostility of the game world towards the group and the level of attention that the enemy reserves for them. In general terms, the level of eye awareness depends on how many heroes are in the group, which cultures are represented in it, and on the intensity of its adventuring activity. A larger and more active group of heroes, including a high elf from Rivendell, has more chances to raise suspicions and stir the minions of the shadow into action than a small group of composed solely of hobbits. To keep track of eye awareness, it is best to use a number of counters or tokens on the gaming table. You will need approximately 20 tokens. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't actually tell you how this works. The starting eye awareness of a company is calculated at the beginning of each adventure phase. This value is determined by the composition of the group, as the enemy keeps a closer watch on those individuals he hates or fears. So for each hobbit you get 0, for each man you get 1. Dwarves and Sylvan elves count 1, Dunedain count 2, and high elves count 3. Oh sorry, actually it does tell you. For some reason I must not have seen this last night. Yeah, because actually, yeah, I overlooked this part. So you basically start your eye awareness at the very beginning, and then you add 1 for each hero with a score of either wisdom or valor at 4 or more, because that basically shows your progress and how you're progressing. Additionally, powerful weapons carried by companions may also arouse the suspicion of the spies of the enemy. Add 1 for each famous weapon and armor carried by the companion. So again, this goes back to the whole treasure thing. It might not be so cool to have one of these if it makes you really suspicious. Increasing eye awareness. During the adventuring phase, a number of circumstances may lead to the increase of a company's eye awareness score. The following paragraphs detail these particular conditions. The lore master must keep track of these instances and update the eye awareness score of the company accordingly. Note that most of the circumstances described below pertain to conditions happening outside of battle. Rolling eyes. Rolling the eye icon, rolling eyes, on the feed die gains a supplementary meaning when using the rules for the Eye of Mordor. When under the shadow, most successful exploits can be tainted by fear and self-doubt. Raise the eye awareness by 1 point whenever a die roll made by a player outside of combat produces an eye icon, regardless of whether the roll resulted in a success or a failure. If the lore master considers it appropriate, rolling an eye under particularly dramatic or otherwise grave circumstances may increase the eye awareness by 2 points. For example, if the company was traveling across a land qualifying as a blighted area. Conversely, if the company is currently in a place either qualifying as a sanctuary or otherwise deemed by the lore master to be safe, do not increase the eye awareness score at all for any roll producing an eye. Shadow gain. A hero who is tormented by grief and beset by the threat of corruption carries a burden that the shadow is quick to recognize and exploit. Whenever a companion gains 1 or more shadow points outside of combat, increase the eye awareness level by an equal amount. This is actually, it's going to be interesting to see how quickly this progresses, because to me this sounds like you will be raising the awareness left, right and center. Using magic. Blatant displays of magical power further augment the company's eye awareness score in a measure that is proportionate to the magical effect. If a companion uses a virtue that is considered to be magical, see box, raise the eye awareness by 1. Open displays of magical power invoked by a wizard or another lore master character capable of such feats provoke the increase of the eye awareness score by 1. In case of a lesser effect, 2 for a major spell and 3 points for really powerful spells. So let's see. Magical virtues. The following virtues are considered to be magical for the purpose of increasing eye awareness. Bearnings, Nightgoer. Dwarves of the Lonely Mountain, Broken Spells. Elves of Mirkwood, Wood Elf Magic. Woodmen of Mirkwood, staunching song. High elves of Rivendell, read the descriptions for beauty of the stars and skill of the Eldar. Examples of display of magic. Lesser effects, illuminate a dark passage. Major spell, light a fire in the storm. Block a door against a powerful adversary. Powerful spells, rain lightning down upon an advancing enemy. You know, seriously. And of course it's like casting a fireball. Resetting eye awareness. When an adventuring phase ends, the tally of the eye awareness is interrupted for the length of the fellowship phase. The eye awareness score is set again at its starting value at the beginning of the following adventuring phase. The hunt. Using the rules explained above, the eye awareness level of a company will change during the adventuring phase, usually growing session after session as the consequence of the actions of the companions. Sooner or later, the score will eventually reach a set level called the hunt threshold. When the eye awareness matches or exceeds the hunt threshold, the group is revealed to the eye. While the score remains inferior to the threshold, I would say actually below, the company is considered to be hidden instead. At the beginning of an adventuring phase, the company is most likely hidden unless their starting eye awareness score is already very high. In the eyes of the enemy, the adventurers are just a group of stray wanderers and their actions are of small concern. The threshold of the hunt depends on the region where you are. So if you are in a free land, it's 20. If you are in a borderland, it's 18. Wildland, 16. Shadowland, 14. And Darkland, 12. Should the company leave their current region to enter another area of the different type, the hunt threshold will also change. So as there might be reasons for your guys to actually say, okay, let's not run around in a terrible place. Hunt modifiers can be -2 if the companions have earned great renown, -4 the enemy is actively searching for the companions, +4 if the company is protected by the blessing of a wizard or another powerful lawmaster character, or +2 the company is traveling under a false name, treading paths that are seldom trodden, or otherwise taking up actions to be discreet and unobtrusive. Mr. Underhill. Revealing the company. As explained above, when the eye awareness score of the company matches or exceeds the current hunt threshold, the company is considered to be revealed. The Lawmaster will now introduce a revelation episode, and these are truly terrifying. For example, serious misfortune. If the company has been revealed by a die roll, it is possible that the same die roll eye result has triggered at the same time another negative event, like a hazard episode during a journey or a bout of madness. When this is the case, the Lawmaster should combine the 2 or 3 unfortunate circumstances into a single grievous instance. In the books, the tragic attempt by Boromir to seize the ring may be interpreted in game terms as a bout of madness coinciding with the revelation of the Fellowship, while the attack by the Watcher in the water in front of the gates of Moria could be seen as the cumulative effect of a hazard episode and a revelation episode. To be quite frank, I doubt that a party in this game would survive the attack from the Watcher in the water. I haven't played, and I will do some combat examples to get a feeling for it, but when I look at the stats of these guys, of the monsters, I'm like, I have no idea how my Bree lady and my Hobbit lady will survive. I can't see this happening. So they give you a couple of examples of revelation episodes. Again, really nice, you can have, for example, that they have to work on resolving a solution, on resolving a situation, and the solution is increased by 2 or 4 points, or you are supposed to meet somebody, but your arrival is deemed to be an ill omen by the people you're visiting. So the tolerance of the whole meeting is lowered by 2, or a severe wisdom test is forced upon a companion, or an ally becomes an enemy, lies and threats through coercion, betrayal, or even sorcery. A weariness of the heart, which is actually the name of an event in the MECCG. An unnatural sense of tiredness has gotten hold of the company, whether it is due to some subtle sorcery or else it is not clear, but all companions are considered weary until the lawmaster deems it appropriate to the circumstances. Of course, weariness affects all of your stats, or your tests in many cases. A will that lends speed, an enemy that the company was chasing or holding prisoner escapes, it gives you very, very good ideas. It also says using Hobbit Tales. Apparently there is a game called Hobbit Tales from the Green Dragon Inn, which I don't have, and it's out of print. If you have a copy and you would like to get rid of it, let me know. Then the deck of cards contained within may be used to randomly generate a revelation episode. I would love to see what this is like. And then lastly, we have the heroic cultures, which are introduced with this book. We have the High Elves and the Rangers of the North. And that brings us to at the end of the book. It also gives you two sample heroes, High Elf of Rivendell, Kirmakar, and Fareth, a Ranger of the North. And that is the end of the book. So what do I think about the book? Well, first of all, I think it's an awesome read. Even if you're never going to play the game, but if you're into Lord of the Rings and the world of Tolkien, it's just a very, very nicely put together history of Eriador. Of course, the Rivendell stuff is made up for the game. I don't know if there is actually as an extant a description of Rivendell anywhere in Tolkien's world and work. But of course, they had to do it because Rivendell is a place you can visit, so they have to fill it with life. So that's really more for gaming. But of course, if you want to game in the world of the One Ring, this is a very, very important book because, first of all, it introduces magical treasure and how to build them, magical creatures and how to find them. It tells you how the hunt and the revelation works, which is built upon in later publications. You can play without it, you don't need to use it, but it is a very, very nice thing. I think, although it could be overpowering. Again, I'm not sure how balanced this is, but it is. You need this book in order to play Ruins of the North, which contains 6 adventures that are set in Eriador, and you can't play those adventures without this book because it refers back to it references the Rivendell / Eriador source book, and you really need it. I think it's just as well written as all of the others. I didn't really find many problems with it. I think I didn't even find a single spelling error, which I'm always very happy about. The art is very nice because they tried not to draw people as much because I think they have a problem drawing people. That's not their forte. Or when they do draw people, they basically just sketch them, and that's a lot better. And yeah, well, Arwen looks terrible, but and Elrond, I don't know, he actually looks like Denethor from the movies. I mean, he doesn't, it's unfortunate. He does remind me a lot of the Denethor actor. I really like it. You should get it. You should read it just for fun. And if you want to play like I do in the West, you need this book. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.